Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center, and it is our favorite time of the week. We're taking a look at the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves. Let's check them out. All right, first up, we have got an exclusive, and it may look quite familiar to you because we've had similar to this before, visually almost completely identical, the RMJ Tactical Unmei fixed blade. Really cool little kind of Quaken inspired everyday carry / tactical fixed blade. Coming in right now at $265, which is about 20 bucks more than previous versions of this knife that we had that came in Nitro V steel because, as you can see right on the front here, CPM MC stands for MagnaCut, everybody's favorite steel it seems nowadays. Very cool, and not a huge jump over the Nitro V versions, which is pretty cool too. MagnaCut, of course, is going to give you that heaping helpings of all three pillars of the steel characteristic chart, being high edge retention, high toughness, and very high stainlessness all in one. Very hard to do, pretty much impossible to do really high levels of all three in any given material without resorting to something like MagnaCut. So really great performance option there. We've got the Knife Center exclusive orange and black G10 with some signature RMJ fluting on it. We'll call it fluting. Is there a better word for that?
Saxophone.
You're already stepping on the last nerve, aren't you?
There was more than one?
I'm very sorry, people. We'll call it fluting then, or scalloping, or whatever you want to call it. But gives you a lot of traction, of course, so in bare hands or with gloves, you've got a lot of grip on this blade. Obviously, RMJ Tactical, they do everything with kind of a tactical attitude. But like I said, this would just be a great everyday slicer. The blade stock is not too thick. We've got a high flat grind, and we'll probably put that at like 2/3 of the height of the blade itself. And that long sweeping belly is going to be great for long sweeping cuts as well. Might even make a really cool tactical steak knife, quote unquote. And yes, I'm a little bit mad at myself for even saying the phrase tactical steak knife, but hey, there you go.
I'll allow it.
Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate that. He's back in my good graces. Look at that. That quickly.
Won't last long.
Not if you have anything to do with it.
Nope.
Anyway, Kydex sheath, as you can see right here, nice click-in setup for horizontal carry right out of the box with these two straps, that's the word, with pull-the-dot snaps on the end, which means, of course, it'll only release if pulled in the straight-up position, the way they have these snaps oriented here. It's not going to pull sideways. If you're running along and you snag into something as you're going past a corner or something like that, snap's not going to come undone on you. So your knife, of course, will be secure, but this being RMJ, these are also going to be compatible with something like a Tech Lock if you want a different hardware option. All right, next up, we have the Chaves CHUB. Two versions of this coming in $175 for the stonewashed titanium version. The black PVD coated version right here is coming in at $185. And yes, this is a fancified utility blade holder. Keeping things stylish and Chavesy, you've got the skull pocket clip there on the back, which sometimes on the knives, they will include a more standard looking clip. This one, however, it's the skull or nothing, but that's okay. We've got a slider on the front to retract that blade. It's got 1, 2, 3 positions of extension, so you can have as little as just that much blade sticking out if you're not wanting to cut too deeply. If you want to score a little bit, you can actually, this is actually a little bit of a thoughtful design. I don't know whether it was intentional or not, but because of the screw placement right here, you can use this kind of, for lack of a better term, nubbin that's sticking out of the bottom of the handle there. Use it as a resting point and very precisely control the depth of your cut with the actual tip of that blade. So if you want to do really fine scoring, you can kind of guide it using the edge of that tool right there, which is also pretty neat. And then, of course, don't forget to slide it all the way in when not in use, because you don't want that poking a hole in your jeans. Really small carry there, right there. Might go really well in that watch pocket, that fifth pocket in your pair of blue jeans right there, especially if you might be going somewhere where maybe a full-fledged pocket knife might get some looks. This one, you know, it's just a utility blade. Might not be as threatening to some. Until you show them that skull, of course, but we'll leave that to the side for now. But yeah, check those out if you're interested in something with a replaceable blade like that. Really handy. All right, next up we have the Acta non-Verba A100. We've had the A200, which is the G10 version of this knife previously, and have been waiting for our batch of the glass reinforced nylon handled versions, the A100, to come in. And now they are in. We've got red handles as well as kind of a navy-ish or kind of a gray-blue color. Both of them come in about $150. For that, you're going to get a 3.6-inch L-Max blade, really solid all-around performance stainless steel. Put it in, I tend to think of it in a similar strata as things like S35VN, Spy 27, that kind of range of steels. Just fantastic all-around high-performance steel for a folding knife. Really cool. Comes with a black DLC coating, and we've got a swedge along most of the length. It widens back out there near the tip to keep a little bit of strength behind said tip. But if you're cutting further back, you know, along the heel or the middle of the blade, it's going to relieve a little bit of friction there on the back side of your cut, especially if you need to make any kind of curve through a piece of material. That's always going to be a nice little touch. Now we have their A-lock, which is their name for their crossbar lock right here. Completely ambidextrous operation, which is very nice. Wire deep carry pocket clip, which is also reversible. And the only thing that isn't kind of dual right out of the box is the thumb stud, which does have a glow-in-the-dark insert, by the way. You can flip this around, however. You can see on the back you've got a screw head, so enterprising individuals could switch this around for left-hand carry. But if you're, whichever side you're using it on, it's a really nice shape for catching your finger. Whether you're coming in off the edge like that, it's very positive, or going right to the center of that button, essentially, because it has that dip down and a very prominent round circular ridge, I should say, grabs on really nicely and should work well with gloves too. It's a nice little touch. It's not, you know, just another thumb stud, so to speak. These knives are nice and light for the size, about 2.5 ounces. Like I said, you've got 3.6 inches of reach, nice action. Here's another little detail I appreciate about this knife. Let me see if let's have another folder here that's a good example. All right, the CJRB we're gonna look at here in a minute. You can see the tang of the blade when it's closed lines up with the handle. And oftentimes, a lot of knives, especially higher end knives, will do that because what they don't want, I'm not sure everyone on the table, but Thomas has his bug out.
Yes, I have a bug out.
Oh, perfect example. You have the tang of the blade sticking out, which doesn't always line up nicely with the curvature of the handle. Some people, this really bothers them. Some people, not so much. I personally, I'm a big fan of the bug out. It doesn't bother me, but thank you, Thomas. Acta non-Verba did something a little bit in between. Yes, you have a tab sticking out from the tang. I shouldn't say tab, that's not the right word, but it's very considered in how it interacts with the handle in that closed position. You can see it lines up perfectly with this character line from the index finger guard right there. That's kind of cool. Kind of sidesteps the issue in a way that looks really neat. The whole knife looks really neat too. Let's not kid ourselves. Solid performer, decent price, a little bit more expensive than something like the Griptilian, but another solid option made in the Czech Republic too. Don't see a lot of knives from that country, so variety also always a good thing. All right, next up we've got a fixed blade. It's a Joe Flowers design, and no, it is not a Condor. Surprise, surprise, or a Tops for that matter. We have the CJRB Hyperlite. Very cool little knife, comes in at about $60 right now. For that, 4.17-inch blade of RPM 9 powder metallurgy steel. And what they're kind of aiming for with this, the Hyperlite, is an ultralight hiking or outdoors knife. And let's evaluate it from that perspective, shall we? Really cool drop point shape. You've got a flat grind on it that's kind of mid-height here at the back, but gradually gets taller, closer towards the tip. So the efficiency or the geometry out towards that tip near the belly is going to be a little bit slicier. Good for some of the hunting, skinning tasks, of course. And there at the back, it's a little bit stouter, which could come in handy when you're doing more heavier push cuts, working on wood, traps, that sort of thing. Pretty cool grind on it, I gotta say, and a pretty cool shape overall. Handles here are G10. The back has a little bit of a signature, not so much a signature, but a nod to Joe Flowers' kind of heritage with machetes. And you've got a little bit of a machete character line to that little tab sticking out. And then this little bit here is a tiny hex turner as well, which is kind of neat. Feel in the hand is not bad for what it is, and I only say for what it is because they kept the scales quite thin on these knives, which again, they're trying to keep it lighter and sleeker for, you know, lighter weight carry or ultralight carry. Weight-wise, about 3.5 ounces, 3.5 inch. And with the sheath, only an extra ounce on top of that. So that's not bad at all for, you know, a full tang knife like this with a thickness. Well, the specs say 0.11, so it's creeping up on an 1/8 of an inch, but doesn't quite feel that thick with my just looking by my ichrometers here. But in any case, it's a decent thickness for just general slicing. It's not a heavy-duty batoner by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, I think it's pretty successful in that regard, keeping it nice and light. I wouldn't want to spend hours carving wood with this. I think it would get quite uncomfortable for me personally, but it's good to have options. And it's good to see a cool knife like this, which I think even more than the outdoor type of thing, which it would certainly work, I think this would make a really cool everyday carry fixed blade. I mean, the weight, you've got folders easily more heavy than that sometimes. The sheath, it's actually set up for neck carry, believe it or not. Kydex with a thin loop there. Actually, this probably wouldn't even fit around my head. Okay, maybe it's not set up for neck carry.
You look like you're about to go through college hazing.
Okay, so maybe it's not set up for neck carry. Scratch that. But one could, and it's honestly, it wouldn't be that bad. I wouldn't carry it around my neck because I don't care to. You also have a belt attachment option right here. It is essentially a couple of pieces of, looks injection molded, it's not Kydex, but that can clamp on here. You can carry it horizontally or vertically. This piece, the belt loop itself, can be rotated. You can carry it horizontally. And let me just check to see. It is not large tech lock compatible, but let's check. I have a small tech lock around here somewhere. Let's see. It is not small tech lock compatible either. I would say it would be compatible with CIVIVI's T-clip, however, because you've got a slot on there. Would also work with Ulti clips or some stuff like that if you wanted to carry it inside the waistband. Be nice and slim for that type of usage, I gotta say. I think it'd be really cool, and you have a very slicey blade with a lot of reach with not a ton of weight for everyday use. Spent a lot of time on the knives up front. Let's try to move a little quicker here. First, another CJRB flipper, the Caldera, about 60 bucks, and this is kind of a extension of, or a riff on the Tigris knife they had last year, which is a bit of a even more cleaver-esque, but this is something along similar lines, which is pretty cool. RPM 9 blade steel here. Length is about 3.5 inches. Pretty decent blade stock there, probably about 1/4 inch. It looks like we measured 0.13. So with the coating on there, the steel itself probably started at 125, 1/8 of an inch, with a pretty much full flat grind. I mean, just barely stopping short of the spine. You've got a very thin cross section, very efficient slicing blade on that powerful shape overall, which is quite cool. Deep carry pocket clip, you can reverse it to either side. Two-tone G10 handles. There's a red inlaid version in addition to this blue one. Liner lock, ball bearings in the pivot, and a flipper, which flips well, and a thumb hole or finger hole, which you can do the reverse flick easily on. You can choke up, get behind that edge a little bit with that finger choil there. Overall, really solid everyday utility cleaver-esque knife. We'll call it, actually, I'd say it's more of a modified sheep's foot than a cleaver, but it's one of those things that's a little bit in between that kind of blends the lines a little bit. Next up, we have an ArtisanCutlery, which is of course the parent company to CJRBs, tend to make slightly more premium knives. This is the Tylos. It is a Dylan Mallory design, and the price here is about $200. Comes with an S35 VN blade. Really cool kind of spear pointy profile going on, something a little bit distinctive for sure. 3.2 inches of it, full flat grind. Again, almost full flat grind with a stone washed finish. Titanium handles, integral bolsters, and marbled carbon fiber. The rest of it follows the playbook you're probably expecting, which is, of course, ball bearings in the pivot and a flipper, but a front flipper in this case, not a revered flipper or a reverse flipper. Let's see. You guys know I'm terrible at these true front flippers. All right, I can slow roll it, but I'm not doing so well with the flick. But you have this big, long opening hole here, so you can do plenty of other flicky things if you wish, or of course the deliberate action. This is a really cool, gentlemanly knife that still gives you a nice, kind of broadish blade to do some real work with. Feels nice, nice and nimble, but nice and strong to boot. Really, really liking that. Speaking of gentlemanly, this might be my favorite knife this week. This is the Urban Trapper Premium from Boker and Brad Zinker. I really like this knife. I've been a big fan of the standard Urban Trapper, which this right here is not, which I'll get to in a minute, but you can see the blade shape on the classic version of the Urban Trapper versus the new Urban Trapper Premium. It's tweaked just a little bit. It's a little bit broader out there near the tip, a little bit more of a sweeping belly, and I am really taken with this shape. It looks awesome. We've got M390 steel on this version, 3.5 inches, high hollow grind, stone washed finish, full length swedge. It is one of those chef's kiss looking blades, as far as I'm concerned anyway. Similar playbook to the Artisan we just looked at. We have titanium with integral bolsters and a shred carbon fiber in this case. Actually, both of these are more shred than marble. I might have said marble on the last one. And that one's a little more marbly, we'll say. A little more shreddy on this Boker. Really cool milled pocket clip as opposed to the folded clip of the classic Urban Trappers, but it still has a similar shape to it. And this one is a top style front flipper. I call it a top flipper. And this I have no problem actuating. That is so smooth. The ball bearings in that pivot are really doing their work. No reverse flipper. You do have a little hint right there. You can see that jimping. When it's open, you still get a hint of that index finger protection, but not really. It's very subtle. Man, that is just... I'm without words at this point. It feels good. The contouring is great. It's going to be real easy to carry, nice and thin in the pocket. Plenty of reach there on that blade too, and just so satisfying overall. All right, back to the classic profile of the Urban Trapper. This version may look very familiar, like mentioned. We've got Cocobolo handles, we've got a VG10 blade, same 3.4 inch as the original. You've got the titanium liners, you got the titanium clip, which I think it's a titanium clip, but the folded clip nonetheless. Even looks like a liner lock right there, but look closer and you'll see it's not actually engaging the back of the tang of the blade, because this is the Urban Trapper 42. This is a non-locking knife. It's still one hand opening, one hand closing as well. It is a detent joint, or because it's flipper, some folks are calling these flip joints. And it's appropriate enough, because daggone if you can't flip it open and closed, and man, it's really satisfying. And what's nice about this versus some other of this detent joint style of mechanism is you do have some finger protection due to the flipper tab in this case. It's not as much as some other designs, but you do have, if the blade starts to close, you've got your finger there to keep it from going too far. Very cool. High flat grind on the VG10 steel here, as opposed to the high hollow of the premium version we just looked at. Horizontal grain, which they've maintained from the older versions of this knife, which I'm very happy to see. Just very cool. Another awesome gentlemanly knife here without the burden or inconvenience of a lock. It's quicker to use and satisfying to fidget with at the same time. All right, next up, we had a bunch of new WE and CIVIVI drop yesterday. This first is the Synergy V2, or sorry, the 2V2. This is the Synergy 2, which we came out with a couple years ago, which was an update of the Synergy, which was not made by we, but that was the first integral aluminum handled knife designed entirely in CAD, came with a button lock. We kept the integral construction, but went with titanium and went with a frame lock rather than a button lock, but they maintained the cool handle shape of the original. I mean, check out the contours from that top shot. You've got a really cool kind of spoon style clip here. Literally, it's like a little tiny little teaspoon there on the end, milled out of titanium, of course. This version here, inlaid with a marbled carbon fiber and a new blade shape. It's the V2 part. And probably the most, in my opinion anyway, the most kind of everyday versatile blade shape they've had on this knife yet. Of course, you had the aggressive trailing point and the trailing point tanto of the original that came to a very kind of aggressive trailing point. This drop point here has a little bit more versatility in its tip usage, and it still comes in premium steel 20 CV, saber height hollow grind in this case, full length swedge, super useful blade all around, and super comfortable handle. Those contours don't just look good, they do a really good job of keeping you feeling comfortable and feeling secure as you work. You've got a lot of radial ridges milled in for more traction. You've got ball bearings in the pivot here, and a great snappy flipping action to boot. Price on that, I didn't mention. This version anyway, coming in about $378 and some change. Non-inlaid versions with that new blade shape coming in about $337. The integral construction, of course, is not cheap to produce. Definitely takes more machine time. Time is money, of course, so there you go. Speaking of aggressively upswept blades, we have the wee Shuddan, something. One of those things spelled out here on the screen, of course. Price on this, a little bit under $300. We've got a 20 CV blade, 3.5, just under 3.5 inches. High flat grind, nice satin finish on it. Looks very good. And then titanium for the handles, pretty broad profile this way, and yet nice and slim to carry. So it's a large-ish knife. This is veering into kind of that Big Easy territory that we talked about in the video earlier this week. Make sure to check that out if you don't know what we're talking about. It doesn't feel quite big enough. It's like just on the small side of big enough to be a Big Easy knife, but you have some of those similar characteristics. You've got a lot of blade length there to work with, but it's something that's not going to be difficult to carry thanks to the way it nestles together when it's closed and to the thinness overall of those scales. But it's thinness without sacrificing a good feel in the hand. That little bit of extra width on the profile kind of balances it out a little bit. It's going to work really nicely in a pinch grip too because of this handle shape. Something about it is working really nicely for that sort of thing. I'm just going to let you really use that belly for those big slices. Rest of the knife, talk about it real quick since I didn't mention. Frame lock, flipper, ball bearings, milled titanium pocket clip. A couple different colors of titanium are available. It's what you'd expect and want from a WE. All right, next up from WE, we have the Mini Malice, a ferrum forge design. Probably one of the two most asked about knives from our SHOT Show coverage earlier this January. It's kind of sized in between the original Malice, which was a frame lock for WE, and the Odium, which is the same kind of shape, but it's a smaller CIVIVI knife. This guy kind of sits right in the middle. We've got a 3-inch blade, 20 CV steel, titanium handles with a really nice shape to them, and a button lock that does all of those button lock things that you want your button locks to do these days. As you could probably see me demonstrating right there. It's got that fall shut action. It's got that excellent flipping. You can hold the button down, flick the blade open with your wrist, or back closed again. It's what you want, absolutely. Price on it is even pretty decently reasonable too, $254 for it. Like I said, 20 CV blade. The titanium handles themselves, I really like this stonewashed bronze version, but there's different versions, different colors, and I like the contouring. Contouring is not even the right word, because it's essentially started out as flat, and you've got a wide kind of deep down chamfer or rounded chamfer right here. So the whole handle is not contoured in the same way like something like that Synergy is, but you get some of the same effect. They didn't just knock the corner off, they really eased it down into the main body of the handle itself. And you get that same cool shape on the back too. Milled clip, you're not gonna be able to flip that around to the other side. It's kind of the nature of it in this case. And you do have a post there at the back if you're the lanyard type of person. Actually, let me check. Hey, that previous knife we showed did not have a lanyard attachment point. I'm kind of happy to see that because I know some folks really love their lanyards, but I think most folks probably don't use it. Interesting. Interesting choice nonetheless. But anyway, there's another version of this knife that comes with a non-20 CV blade. You can get this in Damasteel. Price on that one is quite a bit more expensive. Remember, we're like $254 for this, $609 for the Damasteel version. So that's when I'd say you really got to want that the looks of that steel to spring for that over this, because this one right here is going to give you great performance at a much more attainable price than that version. You can even do some of those index finger flicky things. I'm not going to do it here on camera because I was having a little bit of trouble doing it. See, I told you I wasn't going to do it on camera, but I got it to go like once or twice. So you can get it done that way. You can, of course, pinch it open and just kind of slow roll it open with the thumb. Good option for being a little more discreet, but overall, very cool EDC. For a more affordable button lock though, check out the CIVIVI Cogent. New versions of this, including 3 micarta versions, including this nice brown one right here. It's kind of a brown burlap, always like that. $71.50 for this knife. You've got more blade length than the Malice we just looked at, 3.5 inches. You've got a flat grind like that knife has. You're not going to get as premium a steel, of course, though. This is Sandvik's 14C28N. One of my, amongst my favorite non-particle metallurgy stainlesses, hands down. I think it's great. I love the blade shape here, too. That high flat grind and the thin enough blade stock. Great daily slicer, and you can still do all your favorite button lock things with the button lock there. Deep carry pocket clip, you can reverse it on this side, so if you're lefty, you can take advantage of that button lock, which is pretty nice. I do like that even though the button is kind of right-hand biased, it's still extremely easy to use with either hand. So having the reversible clip, I always like to see that. This next knife we're going to look at also has, as one of its options, this same kind of brown burlap micarta. Even though we're not calling it burlap on the site, this is coarse brown micarta on the site. This is the CIVIVI Cetos, and the price is about $64. Blade length on this bad boy is about 3.5 inches. You've got that 14C28N Sandvik steel again. I really dig the blade shape. It kind of calls to mind like some old school spear points without technically being a spear point. Yeah, it looks like the tip is just a little bit above the center line. Could be wrong about that. Maybe it's a spear point.
I know what I'd call it.
Don't you say it. Don't you dare say it. Good news, everyone. There's not a reverse Tonto on site today.
Come back next week.
Sweet. But anyway, all spear points are drop points. Not all drop points are spear points. Now that that's out of the way, this is a cool blade shape here. Higher flat grind. You've got the deep swedge there at the back, and you've got, in addition to the flipper, you've got that small fuller right there. You can use that for some thumb flicking, I think. There we go. Or that was middle finger flicking, not thumb flicking. You can slow roll it, and you can flipper it. Interestingly, this is also one of the very few CIVIVI frame locks. Most of the frame locks tend to be in the Wii lineup, but you've got it right here. It is stainless steel, not titanium. You've got a deep carry pocket clip inset into that stainless steel frame with flush mounted screws, which is something that you don't get on a lot of CIVIVIs. You get the flush screws, but typically you don't have a pocket milled down for that clip to sit in. So that's pretty cool. It's not reversible in this case, however. But then again, a frame lock like this is very right-hand biased anyway. Really dig it. It's a very kind of neutral shape, very simple, but there's a certain elegance to the simplicity here as well. And you can get it in a couple of different handle materials also. Next up, we have the Thug 2, which is not the first to kind of do this. Might have been the Banter You had the Banter was a Wii model, and then they came out with the Baby Banter as a CIVIVI model. Well, the original Thug was a Wii. Now we have the Thug 2, a little bit more compact, coming in as a CIVIVI. $76, 2.7-inch blade, Nitro V steel, kind of in a similar vein to that Sandvik steel we just talked about. Good stuff. A couple different micarta handle options. This is the green canvas. And apart from that, it follows most of CIVIVI's kind of what I think of them as the standard playbook. Ball bearings in the pivot, liner lock, and a deep carry pocket clip. This one happens to be reversible. And instead of a flipper though, you do have those thumb studs. Folds up really nicely. It has a very compact footprint form factor in the pocket. And that blade pops open and you've got that very aggressive Tonto shape. Very, very cool indeed. Now, if you do want a more premium version of this, you could go with the Wii knife version. It's actually the same size. It's not actually smaller than the Wii version, but those come with, you can get them with titanium handles and 20 CV blades if you'd rather go that direction. Now, this next knife kind of has, in a way, a similar attitude. This is from Olight, the Oknife Parrot. It comes in about 75 bucks. For that, 2.6-inch 154 cm blade with this very broad modified sheep's foot and a very broad G10 handle. That is not a thick handle, but it is a hand-filling design. Really can get a solid grip on that knife. You can manipulate it in a lot of ways. You can see it real naturally just moved for me into that pinch grip. Like I just felt natural doing that. Deep carry pocket clip, folded over on the right side, liner lock and ball bearings as well, and a top flipper. And works pretty well for me with that thummy action right there. And you can even get in and do the index finger flick on it as well. So you have options there. And just a really cool, aggressive, utility looking shape. Stonewashed finish, dig that. Your scratches are gonna blend in as you put that knife to work. Full flat grind going on there. Pretty solid. Really cool to see them really pushing forward. They came out with, what was the first knife called? The Drover? From O-Pen?
I'm still waiting on the O-Lighter.
Thomas got jokes. That's a good one though. I do appreciate that joke. But yeah, it's good to see them doing some more stuff, because we do have some more O knives here. Both of these next ones, I believe, are limited editions. Yes, they are. The first one is the Beagle. It's kind of a harpoon drop point blade shape here. 3.3 inches, 154 cm again. Price on this is about $80, and it comes with green micarta handles, a reversible deep carry clip, one of those true deep carries here. It's not kind of nestled a little further up the handle, and ball bearings and a liner lock with thumb studs for the opening. Very solid EDC shape right there with a little bit of a tactical attitude, if not actual tactical applications, due to that kind of harpoon point shape there. And this is an Ozo design, which is the same designer that does a lot of Kaiser stuff as well. So not an in-house design from them. Good to see them also branching out. Should make some kind of flashlight pun, but nothing's kind of coming to me. Got anything?
I'll enlighten y'all later.
It's low-hanging fruit, but I didn't have anything better, so I'll give it to you. The next one is the Splint. This version, there is a non-limited edition version that comes with G10 and N690 blade steel. This version with titanium, and what steel are we dealing with? S35VN comes in at $169 and some change right there. And this one is the limited version. Just under 3 inches on the blade, you've got a clip point shape. Interesting grinds going on. You've got a flat grind, but you've also got this kind of milled away section around that finger opening hole, but yet they left it full thickness that back there for the jimping. So you've got a lot of interesting things to look at. In terms of that kick out, it's not really in the cutting path, so I don't see that actually snagging anything up if you're worried about that. I don't particularly see that happening. It could happen. Anything could, of course, happen, but it doesn't look too much in the way. It's got a real nice form factor when folded up and nice contouring on that handle. And they went with just kind of some all-time classic color combos here with that matte looking titanium and the blue accents. Always looks classy. This is also a nice small fidgety knife because you have that rear flipper, you have the finger cutout, and you have the top flip option. Let's see if I can get it there without putting any pressure on the lock bar, which of course is something you have to get used to with frame locks in general. There we go, folks. Lots of cool things to play around with. You can get the premium or that more affordable version, which, did I mention the price on those? About 70 bucks. Cool thing on all of these knives I showed you right here as well, they all come with a challenge coin. This one right here is the one that comes with that parrot. You've got the knife itself on there. This is all very nicely etched. Oknife there on the back. Very nice. That's all we have for this week. Thanks for sticking around. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And to get your hands on these knives, links will be in the description to take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And don't forget about our Knife Rewards program, because you might as well be earning some free money to spend on your next knives if you're putting your money down on one of these knives today. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera. See you next time.